the science.
Divided with the blood of 1,000 men and women were filled in these walls. Limbs twisted and broken, iron gouts from bloody bodies, flesh burned black.
Please. No way to death. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no schemes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
Warning, the following show contains conservative posturing, radical Christian ideas, and may offend pagans, Wiccans, Islamic fundamentalists, and other unenlightened individuals. Callers and guests may be subjected to brash and offensive comments by the hosts and any other type of bullying tactics available. But that's okay. We know why you're here.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Tonight is Monday, July 2nd, 2007.
Welcome one and all
Hello, hello.
to World of the Unexplained. I'm J.scott,
I'm Trent Lackey.
and we've got Chuck sitting back here on the money counter.
That's true. D has gone off to
The beach. He's at the beach.
4th of July, America Day. Happy America Day.
How much more generic can you get, though? Let's all go to the beach.
Yeah, I mean, really, what does that have to do exactly with national independence?
I don't know.
That big
Wanna
Revolutionary
party.
War battle that happened in Myrtle Beach in 1781.
Yeah, exactly, that one.
I just made that up, really.
I know.
It'd be kind of funny if they did, though.
I'm just
some
wondering,
random
though. I mean,
battle.
it's just so funny around here. Everybody shuts down, you know, the one time of the year that everyone wants to pretend they're a patriot. The rest of the year, they don't care. We can all go to hell. The Muslims can invade, according to most of these liberals out here. But the one time of the year
crap,
they all want to be a patriot is on the 4th of July. And that's only because they want to have cookouts and get drunk. That's
Yeah.
my opinion.
Can
I
you
don't
hear
know.
me, Scott?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, because I really can't hear me, but...
That's probably the music.
Oh. Okay, well, anyway.
I don't know. Anyway, though, you know, I mean, that's it. I mean, you know what? I'm a patriot year-round. The red, white, and blue. You know, I don't understand... I don't understand these flag-burning jihadis. You know, I'm sure that because they're here in America, that's one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah, it's very appropriate, too, seeing all the stuff that was going on in the terrorist, the bombs that they found in London and the
Glasgow thing, yeah.
attack, yeah.
It's very
All
appropriate.
about
I
some
think
terrorism.
it's, you know, it's just amazing that we, it's almost like we planned that. You know? I mean, it turned out so well. We couldn't have planned it any better. I mean,
That's true. We couldn't have been more appropriate to talk about this.
to be in the media right now on the cutting edge. I think something's coming, though. I think that our guest tonight is on to something. It's something really scary.
Well, maybe so. I was going to tell you a movie that I saw the other day, Scott.
Not 14, what is it?
Yeah,
1408. 1408, yeah.
Thanks, Chuck. It was a really, really messed up film, you know? Now, this was the funny thing, because I know a lot of, just through various people, people that have seen it, I've known that there's a schism between age groups of people that have seen it.
Yeah, we're old and they're young.
and almost universally, like, teenagers that have seen the movie said, "Oh, that stunk. That was an awful movie." You know, and it's not a gory film, but it's a film that will mess with your head.
Maybe
you know?
Maybe it makes them think too much, and since they don't think at all anymore.
I don't know. That might have something to do with it. But what's really weird, Scott, is on the way home from Salisbury, up 801. I can't remember. I always get those two highways confused. But it's really, there's nothing out there.
Desolate and remote.
Yeah, and we're driving along.
Much trees
and
country.
What's really strange is the title.
Deer.
The title of that movie has a connection to me, and I'm not going to get into that connection.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
But it was really bizarre how I have a connection with the title of this film, and I told Cora that, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was this guy walking in the middle of the road on the yellow line, nowhere.
On the yellow line?
Yeah, he was on the yellow line.
Was he drunk?
He was walking a nice straight line. He didn't. I don't know.
Maybe he was trying out for when he does get stopped.
Maybe so. I'm not sure, but it was so freaky because did you see that? Yeah, you know. And it was
How close were you to hitting this guy?
Very
2 feet, 3 feet.
Yeah, because I mean, he just appeared out of nowhere, really. And And we drove by this one particular road, which I swear is haunted in some way or another. There's something going down with a Cherry Hill Road. I've told you about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of very creepy old buildings and cemeteries and churches, and it's just not a very cool road to be driving at night. But we passed by that road, and all of a sudden we heard this unmistakable sound of church bells ringing or something akin to them. I'm not sure how it worked, but the only church...
There's a lot of churches in that area.
Yeah,
though, right?
no. There's in that particular spot that we passed by, there was one church, and it had been abandoned for like the past 12 years, and that's the closest church, and it has a bell in it. You know, it's a very old building, about 150
So as every good
year old.
paranormal investigator, Trent decides, hey,
I'm going to
let's go investigate.
Well, I probably
let's split up.
I really thought about it, but you know, the other Cora said,
Yeah,
we're not driving down. We're not driving down that road.
We know the truth. The j.scott fear got a hold of you like me, and I'm like, nah, we're getting out of here.
Tell you the truth, I mean, that movie really, really bothered me a lot, and it really did its job. I mean, as far as like, I don't know, not in the whole sense of just fear scaring you, but it messed with your head.
But you say the kids don't like it.
I don't think so. No teenager that I've talked to has really cared about it.
What did they say about it?
Hey, they just said it stung. It was no good. It wasn't scary. You know, I mean, I guess at that age, you're used to, you know, well,
Blood
I mean,
and
just
guts.
like us. I mean, you know, we watched Freddy Krueger and Friday the 13th and things like
Good
that.
stuff, man. That was
you
in
know,
the 80s.
And, you know, but that's all blood and guts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And maybe psychological, you know, mental horror is, I don't know. Maybe it takes time to develop or appreciate it. But anyway, it was a pretty good film.
All right. Yeah, Chuck, why don't you grab that?
Yeah, go ahead. And
Go
grab
handle
that.
it, man. Yeah.
Apparently, we got a
A
call.
caller already. Yeah.
But let's talk
you
about
beg them to call. They don't call in. You don't want them to call.
Oh my gosh! What?
Thanks, Chuck. No, they all call. It's all right, man.
Anyway,
Anyway.
but that was a cool movie. I suggest people go see it or rent it or whatever. If you're into horror films, it's pretty creepy, you know.
Yeah. Well, I you know, I'm, you know, like we talked about on the phone earlier, you know, the whole idea about horror. Horror is best in my mind, and I think you tend to agree with me on this. Horror is best when it's basically just, you know, not actually seen. You know, when you have to think
left
about
up to
it
the
in your mind.
imagination,
Yeah.
because your imagination can create such.
Like some of the old Alfred Hitchcock
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. Tell them we'll call him back. Yeah. All right.
Well, okay. Well, that was basically my spiel about that movie.
That was your spiel. Okay.
But it was really strange. I mean, that drive home was very, very, you know, and it was the atmosphere too. The moon was full, and there was fog coming up from the fields, and it was just dark, and you know, except for the moonlight, which cast all these bizarre shadows over things.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and that also, you know, your imagination could easily lead you to thinking about things. But
Well, we may need to have to take a break here. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Do we have some kind of contingency problem here?
I'm not sure.
I don't know what's going on. Well, you know, but you know, it's just it's one of those things where, you know, we went away from the Hitchcock and we've gotten to this new like Hostel and like
The Hills Have Eyes.
I haven't even seen either one of those because I've just heard so much crap about it that I don't even want to see it.
I mean, other than the fear of a horrific death, you know, which is pretty terrible, but you know,
Okay. Yeah, I've got that. That's what I was going to give you, actually, Chuck. Here it is, and you know the code and all that, right?
the secret
Yeah,
code.
I wrote it down right there.
The
yeah,
secret
wait for the dial
code.
tone after that, and then dial. You know, the super phone. It's right over here.
Superphone.
All right, we're
Anyway.
so organized and professional. God
Yeah.
help us. You know. So anyway,
That was my spiel. It has nothing to do with our guest or
I
international
want to thank
terrorism.
KWSS if you're listening to us there in Scottsdale area. You're in the Scottsdale area. I'm number one. You're number two. That's what it is. Yeah, if you're listening to us there, and I just got muted. Thank you, Trent. That's see, Chuck does a valuable job here. But if you're listening to us in the Scottsdale area, then you'll know we thank you for your support and your continued listenership. KWSS 106.7 FM dial.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, definitely. And feel free to call in tonight. We're getting ready to bring the guest on here. The number here is toll-free in the United States and Canada. That number is 877-722-7382. That number again is 877-SCARE-YOU2, or locally 336-996-1596. You're listening to World of the Unexplained. Tonight, we have for you Mr. Paul L. Williams. When I first heard him on the radio, he scared me to death. Then I got a copy of his new book. It scared me even worse. So I've got to have him on because this message is so important to get out. It's about Al-Qaeda. It's called Day of Islam, the Annihilation of America and the Western World. And I'm going to let him basically get into the whole thing. But he's just done a tremendous amount of research, and he's definitely got some wonderful credentials, and we'll let him talk about that. Mr. Paul Williams, are you there with us, sir?
I'm with you, Jay.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Now, you were an FBI correspondent, were you not?
Not a correspondent. I was a consultant. I worked with the FBI on busting the organized crime families on the East Coast, mostly from New York. I was a key witness against them. I appeared before grand juries. I'm responsible for putting a lot of the mafioso in a slammer.
So you're a hunted man.
Yeah, but I did that for quite a while, and I was the editor and publisher of a newspaper here in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I have a PhD in philosophy, and did a lot of research in academics on Islam, and I started to write as a journalist about the threat of radical Islam going back to about 1992, 93, and what else can I tell you?
Well, you're a Christian conservative, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So are we. You've come to the right place.
Hallelujah. Yes.
You know, and when I went to college, I was actually in college with our producer, Chuck, that you just spoke with on the phone. We went to college together. And we went to a fairly liberal Quaker liberal arts school here in North Carolina called Guilford. And I took a class on Islam.
I know that school.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, sure.
I took a class called Islam 101 or something like that. It was a very in-depth study. We read the Quran, the Hadith, a lot of different books. Karen Armstrong's book on Islam. We read it.
One of the worst books ever written.
Oh, really? Well, we read that. We read things on Sufism and things like that, and it was very eye-opening to me. And this was pre-9/11.
Uh-huh.
And so after reading all that, I didn't really put a lot of stock in the militant Islam, ideology until much later on, especially after 9/11, and especially after reading your book, I have to admit.
Right. Well, there's no distinction between radical Islam or militant Islam and Islam. Islam by nature is militant. When the religion came into being in the 7th century, it came into being with an outburst of violence. The Muslims spread by the sword throughout the Arabian Peninsula into northern Africa, through Cyprus, through Italy, through Spain, up through the Pyrenees. And they're driven back by Charles Martel in the 8th century, Charles the Hammer.
Uh-huh.
And when they were driven back, they came at the West again, and that represented the Crusades. And they conquered Jerusalem, marched on toward Constantinople, and the Christian forces held them in check, and to some measure pushed them back. And they came at us again, and they were driven back at the gates of Vienna by the great Polish king John Zabriskie in the 16th century. And then they came at us again through the time of the Ottoman Empire, and now they're coming at us. This is a very old story, Jay.
It's like Germany with world wars. They just don't give up.
No. It's a very old... But to separate Islam from militancy is an impossibility. You can't do that.
Okay.
Islam means submission, as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, submission to Allah.
And when we all know about the jihadis running around here nowadays, blending in with our culture, I think it's an appropriate time to have you on because of what happened in Scotland here recently and in London with the foiled attempt there, but also because of the poll that came out. I'm sure you're familiar with this not too long ago, where it asked the younger Muslims in the United States and all over,
very familiar. The poll.
Yeah, when is it okay to basically kill others to defend your faith, and the resounding yes. That's scary.
Yeah. Well, it's ingrained in them. There's a verse from the Quran that says, "Slay the unbelievers wherever you find them." And that's just one verse among many. Smite them at the hands and the neck, the unbelievers wherever you find them. That means to cut off their hands and cut off their heads, and that's of course what they do. But the threat of Islam in the United States is by and large being very gravely and unexplainably overlooked.
Oh, it's because we're all political correct socialists now.
It's the truth. I was at a conference with the elected officials in Toronto. I just came back from it. And the dean of journalism up there, his name is Stuart Bell. He's a jerk. He addressed the group and he said, the Al-Qaeda represents a group of spoiled, rich Arabs who are acting up and creating a great deal of embarrassment for the Muslims throughout the world. Well, and everybody stood up and gave him a standing ovation for this. Well, the reverse is really true, as you hinted at. When the CIA conducted a poll of educated Saudi Arabians between the ages of 19 and 45, over 90% of them expressed their support for bin Laden and their support for the jihad.
And that's what's so shocking, Paul.
Let's not forget Muhammad Atta, for example, on 9/11 was a very well-educated man.
Well, that's what I was. Yeah,
that's another thing. And
like the doctor that you referred to in your book.
With the attacks in Glasgow, in Glasgow, many of them were physicians.
Yeah,
at least three.
Call them the doctors of death in the tabloids.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's so shocking that people that you would expect to be, that are already deeply ingrained in society, that have put a lot of work toward, attaining a certain place and a certain, like for me, for example, I'm an attorney. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of work to get yourself to that level, and then to throw it all away overnight like that.
Yeah.
Amazing. These people are not only very well educated. Like Osama bin Laden is an engineer with a background in nuclear technology. I mean, you very rarely hear that, but he is. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the same thing, an engineer with a background in nuclear technology. Anas al-Libi, the leader of Al-Qaeda, same thing. Adnan al-Shukr Juma, who's to commandeer the next attack on American soil. Once again, an engineer with a background in nuclear technology. These people are very well educated. They have nuclear capability, and they are intent upon our destruction. While we're in some type of stupor, and that is what's mystifying to me.
Well, let me briefly kind of lay the whole gambit of this thing real quick for our listeners that aren't familiar with your work. Basically, the idea that you're promoting here is that there is a plan by the jihadis to attack 7 U.S. cities, some of the most populous U.S. cities at one time in a American Hiroshima, with these small nuclear devices that are basically each explosion with the power of what a Hiroshima bomb did back, the A-bombs did in World War II. Am I correct so far?
Yeah, you are, Jay.
And that's now what that would do, in my opinion, to the United States government and in the United States in general, that would probably put us in a state of martial law.
Well, let me just backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
This didn't come from me. I'm only a reporter. This came from Al-Qaeda itself. When Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was taken into custody, his laptop contained all this information on the American Hiroshima. At Gitmo, informant after informant after informant spoke to the CIA about the American Hiroshima. This is in 2004. Bin Laden and company, the Al-Qaeda heads, received a religious ruling, a fatwa, from the Saudi clerics, granting them permission to kill 10 million Americans in a nuclear attack. I mean, they didn't obtain this fatwa to keep it in some desk or to bury it in some cave. I mean, they obtained that for a purpose because they needed that ruling in order to execute the plans that are right now in place. And since 1993, bin Laden has been obtaining nuclear materials. When he returned to Afghanistan from the Sudan in 1996, excuse me, he purchased nuclear weapons from the Chechens. This was all very well documented. Beginning in 1999, he began working with scientists and technicians from the AQ Khan Research Facility in Pakistan.
Well, let me stop you there for just a second, Paul. My co-host Trent was wondering, and he brought up a good point. I'm gonna let you ask about it.
We only have 3 minutes of the break, so
yeah, but you can go ahead and get into it, and we can continue after the break.
Okay. Right. Basically, you say in your book that the Chechens had obtained these suitcase nukes. First of all, the KGB had created them some years prior to that, and they didn't register them in their documents of listed weapons that are produced. I guess it was some kind of black ops sort of thing. Makes sense. And the Chechens had acquired these during the war in Chechnya, and we'll get into that after the break in a little more detail. But one of my questions, my primary question at this point in the game is the relationship between Chechnya and Russia has been poor for decades. I mean, ever since Stalin basically expatriated them to Siberia, and the Chechens despise the Russians. Now, my question basically is this: if they had suitcase nukes, and I know you mentioned the fact that they had planted one in Moscow, and just to show that they could use it. These are the same people like Shamil Basayev who basically orchestrated the Beslan school attack and the opera attacks. I mean, these people clearly have no problem with attacking civilians and children. So, given their hatred with Russian people in the war in Chechnya, if they had these weapons, why didn't they just say, okay, here's the end game, bam, we're going to drop one on Moscow and Petersburg and stop it?
Well, there's a very easy answer to that one, because these people have tactical nuclear weapons, granted, and they did plant one in Ismailovsky Park outside of Moscow just to show the world that they did have, radiological and tactical nuclear weapons. But the reason why is Russia has strategic nuclear weapons. So if they detonated a dirty nuke or a tactical nuke anywhere in Russia, can you imagine the repercussions with a strategic nuclear weapon?
Yeah, I think they're probably
detonated against Chechnya, which is a real place. Let's realize that with Al-Qaeda, you're dealing with a shadow organization that has no central location. I mean, if you're going to retaliate against them, where do you retaliate? Indonesia, Middle East, South America? Where do you retaliate against these people? But Chechnya, all you need to do is center in on Grozny, and guess what? With a strategic nuclear weapon, that's the end of Chechnya.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about
I guess that's that.
Yeah, that pretty much sells that question.
Because we had talked about this before having you on. I was like, that's like, man, you've got to read this. You've got to read this. He's like, I'm wondering about this. I'm wondering about this. And then
there's a certain.
After he read it, he's like, I still don't understand this. So it's like.
So I mean, Chechnya basically would have been, they would have gone 2 or 3 steps beyond the carpet bombing over Grozny that the Russians had practiced in the war.
But they want recognition of themselves as a republic. Well, guess what? I mean, Russia, if they launched a very serious nuclear attack, or if they detonated that device in the Ismailovsky Park, can you imagine the repercussion? I mean, recognize them as a republic. I mean, they would be toast.
Yeah, that's
Nothing
true.
to recognize.
Yeah, well, I mean, besides the fact they would cease to exist, but the international community would not be pretty supportive of their cause. I don't think they were for the most part anyway, but
let's
they
remember
definitely
too,
wouldn't.
That the Chechens are Muslims to a man.
Yes.
Don't separate them from Islam and Osama bin Laden. These people are radical Islamists.
What surprised me the most about your book, Paul, was noting all of the. Trent and I have been to Quebec together on a college trip before, and I've been back a couple times. It's a wonderful city. Quebec City is one of my favorite cities in the world to visit.
Chateau de Frontenac.
Makes me feel like I'm in Europe, without leaving the States, and without leaving the northern, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the point is though to be in Montreal, you're surrounded with all that francophone culture and everything, and I would never have assumed there to be such a high concentration of Islamic fundamentalists there.
Absolutely. Well, there is. You know, the situation in throughout Canada is ludicrous. What you can do in Canada is just say that you're a terrorist from the Middle East. You're alfalfa, okay? you were born and raised in Saudi Arabia, and you want to blow up the United States. So all you need to do is fly to Canada. Now get this: any place in Canada, Montreal or Toronto or Ottawa, you arrive there and you say, "I am seeking political sanctuary."
Kind of like the one guy you talk about in your book that did it, what, 4 times?
Well, yeah, because I'm a Muslim terrorist. Now, now you can announce this. I'm a Muslim terrorist and I need sanctuary in Canada. Immediately they will grant you public welfare. This sounds mad, and it's crazy, but it's true. They grant you public welfare, put you in public housing, and they immediately grant you, a card by which you can get a Canadian passport. That's true. So, you think that maybe a few hundred Islamists took advantage of this opportunity, but you'd be wrong. Tens of thousands have, and they're throughout Canada.
Now, we're going to have to take a short break, Paul, but when we come back, I want to talk about what the FBI knows and why they're not doing anything about it. But you guys are listening to World of the Unexplained tonight. Our guest is Paul L. Williams. The book is The Day of Islam. Give us a call here, 877-SCARE-U2. That's 877-722-7382, or locally 336-996-1596. We'll be right back after this.
This is World of the Unexplained. I was trying to do something different, guys. If you want to talk to Paul Williams tonight, the numbers are 1-877-722-7382, or locally 336-996-1596. And there's also the chat room. I don't know how it's going because I don't have a computer.
Yeah, but, the chat room is kind of dead. I think everybody, not even Chris in Atlanta is chiming in right now.
Yeah, they're...
I think Atlanta's on the hit list, Chris. Watch out.
Okay, Scott, it was your question with the feds.
Oh, yeah.
I want to get back to
I'm going to kind of let Paul kind of steer the direction, because I want him to get out what he wants to, what the main things we need to know are about this to our audience. But the one question I do have is, throughout your book, you cite a lot of these FBI knowledge that the FBI knows that these things are going on. These people are in the United States, and it seems like they really don't care.
It's not that they don't care. It's the fact that war has not been declared. And after 9/11, George Bush announced that we're engaged in a war on terror. You cannot be engaged in a war against a word. Terror
you can if you're George W.
Yeah, I guess so. He thought terrorists had name tags
and
uniforms.
But if you're really engaged in a war, the first thing you do is identify the enemy. The enemy, in this case, are all the organizations that signed that fatwa, that declaration of war against us in 1998. These organizations include Al-Qaeda, but you got to realize that the Egyptian Islamic group also signed it. The Moral Liberation Group signed it. Hamas signed it. Hezbollah signed it. And over 95 other Islamic groups throughout the world. We're at war with all of them. They're the people that we are at war with. And, when the State Department cannot even identify the enemy, we're in very serious trouble right in the beginning. But secondly, George Bush and his administration never sought to obtain a declaration of war from Congress. So we're engaged in another struggle, like Korea and Vietnam, that represents a no-win situation. The War Powers Act cannot be brought into play. The Smith Act, the Voorhees Act, these bits of legislation that are on the books cannot be brought into force because Congress has not declared war.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. If the War Powers Act was brought in, we could strategically raid some of these holy Islamic temples and go in there and get these people out.
Right, and we could round up the radical imams who are spewing this vehemently anti-American hate and demand and calling out for the spilling of American blood. We could round them all up from the various mosques and Islamic temples centers throughout the country and ship them back where they belong, or else keep them in a detention camp.
Well, we know they're never going to give George Bush that kind of power.
Well, the first thing they do when you bring into when you're at war is you don't seal the border, you shut the borders down. That's the very first thing you do. That's what happened, of course, during World War I and World War II. But we're at war and not at war. And I always believe that if you're going to have a war, have a real one. Have a war. No, I'm serious.
No, I understand.
Have a war where there's a real outcome that would benefit the American people. If our boys are going to die in Iraq, well, first of all, there's no need for it. I mean, it should be a near offensive. I mean, just level the place. And and at the end of it, because they caused us to expend $500 billion, and there are 3,500 American soldiers dead there. What's the reparation? What's the country giving us in exchange? I mean, after every war, real war, there's a reparation. But what's our reparation at the end of this struggle? There's none. And what we should be looking for is, at the end of this, since you caused us all this agony and all this economic sacrifice and all this loss of precious American blood, we're going to take your bloody oil.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I've said.
What do we get? What do we get next? The very first thing that we're fighting for, a democracy, so-called democracy in Iraq, the very first thing that the new Iraqi government did, the democracy, was impose Islamic law, Sharia, on all the people of Iraq, so that the Christians now are being persecuted in an unbelievable manner. Christian churches are being burned down. You never hear this on the news.
Of course not.
In Syria right now, there are over 300,000 Christian refugees. That's as a result of the policy. They are now under Islamic law, and that's what we're fighting for. It's madness.
How do you, as a Christian, Paul, what do you think about this? What do you think in terms of the end days, in terms of, do you think this might just be the trigger?
Well, looking at this from a biblical perspective, like, first of all, it's incredible for me. I'm 62 years old, and you're seeing prophecy just come. I mean, anybody who is not converted to the Word of God or illuminated by the Scriptures just needs to read the headlines.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing Scripture come alive, and it's an unbelievable experience. Because in Scripture it talks about Israel being surrounded on all sides by these horrible monsters. Look who they're surrounded with right now: the PLO, which is a Fatah party that we have funded. We're funding them. They're surrounded with Hamas, and they're surrounded with Hezbollah. What could be worse? God, may God. I mean, you speak about terrible powers, and like you're saying, the truth of Scripture coming to light. Just read the papers.
Well, I mean, you never hear mentioned. The United States, really, a lot of people argue, is not mentioned during the end times.
The United States. God will protect Israel.
Oh, yeah.
Israel is Israel is the apple of His eye. It's not the United States. We are not the promised land. We might believe that God is going to protect us, but why should He? Osama bin Laden wrote a letter, and he explained why he has to destroy 10 million Americans. He wrote a letter, and he said that we're going to nuke you because of several reasons. One, you have invaded Muslim laws. Two, you have set up military bases, permanent military installations between the holy cities of Medina and Mecca. This is holy land. A Christian is not even allowed, or a Jew or a Hindu, to be buried here, let alone own a business or have an apartment. We don't want you guys contaminate our holy land, and yet you installed bases here. For that, we have to go at war against you. And then they said, because of the economic sanctions that we imposed against Iraq, we have to go at war against you. But this is more important. And then he said this. He said, listen, American people, you have polluted the world. And you have polluted the world not only with your industries, but you have polluted the world with your television programs. You have polluted the world with your movies. You have polluted the world with your abortion. You have polluted the world with your legislation that permits these horrific things to take place. You have polluted the world in every way, shape, and form. You are something that is completely abominable in the sight of God, and for that you have to be obliterated. Now, when he's writing that to the American people, saying that because you have slaughtered so many unborn children, and because you have spread pornography to young minds, and corrupted the morality of the world. When you have to read this and you're shaking your head saying, "Guess what, Osama? You're right." It's really disconcerting, because what he does say about us is true.
Yes, it is. To a certain extent. I mean, we are culturally
we have done that.
Spreading.
We have spread pornography throughout the world. We have loosened morality. We have not lived up to the morality of our forefathers. We have not. And he's saying because of that, you are not a moral standard. I mean, who could ever look to the U.S. right now as a moral standard?
Possibly Amsterdam. Amsterdam, Bill Clinton.
Yeah. I mean, where's the moral standard?
Yeah, no, I agree. Things. We were talking the other day about just the media in general, the words you could say on the radio 50 years ago versus today, and just how bad it's gotten.
I mean, I hate to admit it, but
reality TV.
Some of their complaints about our society and culture are completely
that
justified.
That doesn't give
them the right
that jihadi the right to come over here and touch us at all. Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, but I agree with you. And listen, what I'm calling for is the opposite. And you have to understand. I hope you understand.
No, I do understand.
These people are intent upon our destruction
at any cost.
In their own minds, they have justification for doing what they are doing, and some of that justification I can understand. Now, I don't believe that we have invaded Muslim lands. I don't think we've taken their natural resources. I don't believe that we installed military installations in Saudi Arabia for nefarious purposes. I don't believe any of that. But I do believe, I can understand when they're talking about our immorality, and Osama bin Laden goes at great length about the fact that we allowed Clinton to remain in office, and he remains the most popular political figure in the United States right now, and he is, according to them, a reprobate.
And now his wife's running for president.
Agree with them.
And now his wife's running for president.
Exactly.
So let's get. I mean, I know it's about.
I just wanted to say one other thing, Trent, if you don't mind. I find out, obviously the Muslims that are behind this are cowards because they don't want to show their faces. They don't want to. They want to stand behind this thing, and I know that's what terrorism in a large part's about. But it's kind of it doesn't kind of go against the grain of this all or nothing, die for Allah, when like when some of these people in your book that you talk about are arrested, found guilty, sentenced to possibly 150 years, but guess what? To save their own hide, they'll sing. And that's how we've got a lot of this information. It seems like
their hypocrisy.
Exactly.
If they're truly that zealot, they would
say, you can do whatever you want with me, kill me, I'm dying for Allah. But they sing, man. They sing like a bird. Why do you think
waterboarding is
effective?
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Paul? Though, I mean, why is it that they're so diligent and so determined, but then the minute they get caught, a lot of these guys just spill the beans in order to secure their own freedom?
Well, I don't think that we've been obtaining the type of information that the FBI has obtained from these people. A lot of it is not accurate, and that's what's interesting. So a lot of it is, the old Islamic practice of deception. So you have to be very careful there. These people are intent on this is number one. They have been securing nuclear weapons. Nobody can dispute that. People say, how could they possibly get a suitcase nuke? A suitcase nuclear device is a very old bit of technology. It dates back to 1958, for heaven's sake, in our military. We used to call them SATMs, small atomic demolition munitions. This is not nuke technology. And the Russians, of course, had them. And you have to realize that after the breakdown of the Soviet Union, Germany alone reported over 700 sales of nuclear materials and weapons. Germany alone by 1995. These weapons were very easy to secure. throughout the 90s, and even right now, for anyone that has deep pockets like Bin Laden, where he's getting all this money from drugs, has from the heroin in Afghanistan, certainly has the means to come up with 10 million or so for one tactical nuke. But according to my sources, at least a dozen have already been forward deployed here for use in the immediate future.
Wait a minute, you're saying that there are at least a dozen of these suitcase nuclear weapons in the United States currently?
I'm not. What I say doesn't mean anything.
No.
The Israelis have confirmed that. You have to realize after the Waziristan summit, when we started taking some of these people into custody, forget about what they said, but and their laptops and their computer trails, we found out that several of these weapons, including material from Sharif al-Masri, that several of these nuclear weapons have been developed and forward deployed to Mexico and successfully transported into the U.S.
See, like I said, our unsecured Mexican border. What did it cost us? Wait a minute. Now, Chuck's giving me a sheet here, our producer. It says Israel had intelligence on 9/11. Which means it's probably pretty accurate based on that.
The Israeli intelligence is the best intelligence in the world.
Mossad is a scary little group of people.
Well, yeah, they're not scary. They're very good.
Scary in how good they are. I mean, how competent they are.
We need those guys teaching our guys.
I think so.
Yeah.
But right now in the FBI, they will not hire an Israeli as a translator, despite the fact that these people are the best translators in the world and our allies.
But they'll probably hire some guy named Muhammad, won't they? Because they want to be diverse.
Exactly.
They won't hire any homosexuals.
But they won't hire any homosexuals? Why not?
They've canned
yes, they will.
of them.
Oh, Chuck just says they've canned 75 of them.
That spoke here, or
But they catch them all in the closet together?
Oh, yes, they will. Yes, they will. You cannot you cannot discriminate against a special agent right now or a candidate for
it makes me sick
because he's homosexual.
It makes me sick. Since when, it's like this hate crime legislation that they're trying to intertwine this, I'm a homosexual, so I should have special treatment. Since when does choice equal special treatment under the law? Since when does an assault on one person because they're a homosexual any different from me assaulting you because you gave me a dirty look at a bar? It's the same crime. Why shouldn't it be charged and punished the same way? I don't understand that. To me, that shouts and spits of an equal protection violation in the first place. I don't know.
Well, Jay, that's why we have you as a lawyer.
Exactly. Unfortunately, there are too many of these liberal lawyers out there and liberal judges that try to read things there. They try to make the Constitution say things that it doesn't say, that try to control and manipulate it to their own personal agendas. It just makes me sick.
Let me tell you a story about the U.S. right now and the Constitution. I'll give you from my personal experience. I go out to different training. Like I go out, and I'm an old reporter, so when I'm doing a story, I do my field work. Like I've been to paramilitary Islamic compounds throughout the United States. When I found out that Adnan al-Shukr Juma was the person to commandeer the next 9/11, and I found out that he was sent to McMaster University by Al-Qaeda to receive nuclear training, I went to McMaster University. And what I found up there was terrifying. There were at least 5 operatives up there. They were trained by Muslim professors, who almost all of them came from Egypt, and many of them had ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. And when they left McMaster University, about 180 pounds of nuclear material was missing. Now, the fact that I wrote about this, and that I say it, and I'm saying it right now on your program, loud and clear, these things are true. But I am now being sued in Canada by McMaster University to the tune of about $20 million. I've lost almost everything I have, and they said, look at Williams, we are trying you under Canadian law. You no longer have your freedom of speech or your freedom of press. This is true. I'm being tried under Canadian libel laws and being prosecuted under Canadian law, despite the fact that I'm a Yank with no affiliation to Canada at all.
I don't see how they get personal jurisdiction over you, Paul.
They have it.
How?
Because under NAFTA. I'm a writer. You got to realize I'm a published writer.
Oh, my God. You've got to be kidding me.
Yes. And not only that, they can seize my assets. And there is no way I could win in Canada.
Yeah, no joke. You're in a socialist wonderland there.
Exactly. In Canada, for instance, you're not even allowed to say to bring up in court that the professors training at Al Shukr Human Company were Muslim, because that's prejudicial. So there's no way I could win up there. But the fact is, I cannot, in all conscience, sign a disclaimer saying what I said was erroneous or false, because what I said was true. And despite the fact I have to lose everything because I said it, I'm not going to go away, and I'm not going to sign anything.
Wow.
But you do pay a price for these things.
You know, I'm it's really scary now. I'm wondering exactly. I've never actually took a look at NAFTA.
Your airwaves right now are reaching Canada.
Yeah.
These guys could turn around, and that's why Michael Savage is so brave. They could turn around and sue him.
I say bring it on.
Yeah.
Hey, bring it on. But let me tell you something, Jay. You're a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know that even if you start to defend yourself in Canada, do you have any idea what it costs? I do.
Well, I'm not defending myself in Canada. They're going to have to come down here.
But you see, under NAFTA, I mean, they could get a judgment by default up there. But believe me, and you look into this, they could collect. You guys are in business. You're broadcasting, and those airwaves are reaching Canada.
I don't know if any of our airwaves do reach Canada, actually.
I thought they...
Boy,
I don't know if they do.
Well, you better hope they're not reaching Mexico, and you can be tried under Mexican law, because...
we're hitting Scottsdale, Arizona. I don't know how close that is to the Mexican border.
Oh, then you're sort of safe. I'm not so sure about Scottsdale.
Well, we do stream worldwide on the internet as well. I'm sure we piss off. I'm sure we piss off tons of Muslims every day. I haven't received any threats yet. I'm sure you have.
Are you kidding me? You just go to islamberg.org and you'll get the latest fatwa on me.
Oh my God!
Wow, you have a whole fatwa on you.
So what's the price on your head right now going for, Paul?
Oh, I think the price on my head is probably $1.95. You know.
Oh,
come on now.
Well, I do. And every opportunity. That's why, like a show like yours, like I spend all my nights. This is not fun. It's not. I'd rather be out having some pizza and a beer.
I understand.
To tell you the truth, but if you're a Christian and you're committed to this, I have to do this. I'm called to do this. I have to proclaim the word, and I have to act as a watchman, because we are going to. ABC News yesterday reported that they had come upon a Homeland Security report for this summer. They called for a spectacular, you guys saw this, attack on American soil this summer, now. And believe me, that attack has been long in preparation, and it will occur. Maybe not this summer, but it will occur very soon.
So what do you think our timeline is? How soon do you think something's going to happen?
It would occur. It would have occurred if the Islamists were losing the war on terror, but they're winning. They're winning on all counts. They're winning in Europe. You look what happened in Spain and in France, where they can firebomb car after car after car, hundreds of cars every night, and they're not even called Muslim.
Yeah.
They're winning in Russia. They're winning in South America. They're winning in Canada, big time, and they're winning here. Look, we're installing footbaths in the national airports. We're providing them every special privilege imaginable. They're winning here. There are compounds, even former Army training camps, that they're leasing for $2 a year to train people for the jihad on American soil. These things are going on. They're winning.
That's terrible. Terrible. And it just gets worse. We're getting ready we're going to have to take a break, Paul. Stay with us, guys. We'll be back in 5. 877-722-7382. That's 877-SCARE-U2, anywhere in the U.S. and Canada, not in Mexico. Give us a call here. We'll be back in just a little.
This is World of the Unexplained. We got Paul Williams on tonight, Day of Islam. You can give us a call, guys, 1-877-722-7382. That's 1-877-SCARE-U2. 336-996-1596 is the local number, and the chat room is kind of ghostly tonight, but it is 4th of July and all that.
Oh, my connection's expired.
Oh.
In the chat room.
Okay. Yeah. Paul, you're there, right?
Yep.
Okay. We kind of worked a little bit backwards because I wanted to hit this before we started talking about the broader issues. And essentially what I want you to, if you could, just sort of give us a more detailed synopsis of their operation, how they got the nukes, what they did with them, I know there's a pretty vast and complicated network of how these things operated, but if you could just sort of give us a good overrun of how it all started and where it went.
Cut to 1993, the Sudan. At that time, bin Laden was really exiled from Saudi Arabia. He was living in Sudan, and he began his quest for nuclear materials. He sent out a guy by the name of Jamal al-Fadl to negotiate sales of nuclear materials. Al-Fadl made one at several scores, but at least one that we know of. He met with Sudanese officials, and these Sudanese officials showed al-Fadl a canister of highly enriched uranium that came from Valendaba, a nuclear facility in Pretoria in South Africa. Bin Laden had to test it at an Al-Qaeda laboratory in Khalat Koko, a subdivision of Khartoum. It tested to be weapons grade. He made the purchase. This came out in U.S. court, in federal court, the United States versus Osama bin Laden in February 2001. The cancel check for that purchase is the very first thing that you will find in the ALEC file, the file on Osama bin Laden at the CIA. Following that, after he left Sudan and made additional purchases, he relocated to Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, he sent out agents to Chechnya, and they made additional purchases, including the small atomic demolition munitions we were talking about before. He also got in contact with other sources, a Ukrainian arms dealer by the name of Simeon Migalovich. All of this is anybody can verify this by themselves. And he began working with, Al-Qaeda began working with Spetsnaz officials, former Soviet special forces, who were very well trained in these small atomic demolition munitions and how to detonate them, how to maintain them. Bin Laden, by the year 1999, began working with Pakistan, especially people from Pakistan's Atomic Energy Commission. Dr. Mahmoud was the chairman of Pakistan's Atomic Energy Commission. He met with bin Laden on a regular basis, and scientists from the AQ Khan research facility in Pakistan began working with Al-Qaeda to develop and maintain their weapons. Now, this is all, according to some of your listeners, conjecture. Let me tell you where the proof is.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 month after 9/11, let me take you to the Allenby Bridge between Jordan and Israel. There's an old Volkswagen bus crossing the bridge, spewing smoke. Mossad stops the bus, just on a whim, just on really a whim. There's a guy with broken teeth and kind of portly driving it. They look in the back of this bus. This is just by sheer fortune or by divine providence. And they find a plutonium implosion device, the most sophisticated bomb you can build, in the back of this old Volkswagen bus. It's taken by Mossad. It's reported by UPI and by news agencies throughout the world, verified by Israeli intelligence. From that time on, nobody could really seriously dispute whether Al-Qaeda had nuclear weapons. But for those who still had reservations, when our troops were combing the caves of Kandahar in October and November of 2001, they found one canister in the cave of Kandahar of uranium-238. This is not weapons-grade material, but it's for use in a dirty bomb. This one canister that was found was worth about $20 million on any market. Now, right after that, at the end of November 2001, our troops were combing the area around Kabul, Afghanistan, and they reached Turpak Farm, and they found a vast underground laboratory. And within this underground laboratory, Turpak Farm, Turpak, anybody can Google it right now that's listening, Turpak Farm, they found jars and jars and jars of yellow cake, primary ingredient for manufacturing a nuclear device. And they also found canisters, once again, of uranium-238. So once again, you had other confirmation that Al-Qaeda had nuclear material. Let me cut even further. Yeah, you have Hamid Mir, who is a colleague of mine. I'm in constant communication with him. You have Hamid Mir interviewing bin Laden in the wake of 9/11. He's the only one who did, and he interviewed Zawahiri. And he asked them point blank. These guys don't lie. He asked them point blank, do you have nuclear weapons? And they said, oh, yes, we do. And we got them from Russia, we got them from the Ukraine, and we intend to use them against the United States. Now, okay, still, you might say, a matter of conjecture. Well, Hamid Mir discovered that Al-Qaeda conducted nuclear tests in Kunar, the Kunar province of Afghanistan. The soil there is still red hot. Now, that's not conjecture. And the scientists, one of the scientists who conducted that nuclear test in Kunar, was permanently blinded. He can be interviewed by anyone. So once again, we have the situation in Allenby Bridge. You have the canisters found in Turpak Farm and in Kandahar. You have the situation in the Kunar province. Let me give you some more. Okay, MI5, two MI5 operatives infiltrate Al-Qaeda from a London mosque. They are trained in Afghanistan for the jihad. These are MI5 agents, British intelligence agents.
Right.
And they arrive at a laboratory in Herat, Herat, Afghanistan, where they see nuclear devices being assembled. These nuclear devices have never been recovered.
Wonderful.
So I don't know. I could go on and give you case after case after case. There are Al-Qaeda operatives who have been arrested in the United States and who have subsequently died of radiological poisoning. What material do they come in contact with here in the States? How did this happen? These people, once again, at any given time, a weapon, a small atomic nuclear weapon, exudes a temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. They're prone to oxidation and rust. The triggers start to degenerate, and the triggers have to be replenished every 6 months. Bin Laden and company know this. That's why they have people like Adnan al-Shukr Juma being trained in nuclear technology. And these are the guys who are spearheading the next attack on American soil. Now, let me give you the final proof. 2 weeks ago, Robert Mueller, the director of the FBI, held a press conference in Miami, Florida. It was probably the least covered press conference, and probably the most important press conference of certainly the new decade. At that press conference, he said the American people should prepare for a nuclear attack by Al-Qaeda. This is the head of the FBI issuing this warning to the American people. I didn't see this on the front page of the New York Times. I did read it, and I read the press release from the FBI, but anyone can verify this for themselves. Just go to the FBI website. He held a press conference and said this. Our elected officials, including Dick Cheney, said that a nuclear attack by Al-Qaeda is imminent. This is coming from our highest elected officials. Now, I don't know what else it takes to wake up people. It certainly, if they're not listening to Mueller, and they're not listening to Cheney, and they're not listening to Chertoff or anyone else who speaks about the nuclear threat from Al-Qaeda, will not listen to me as well.
Well, it's because they're too busy listening to Paris Hilton and all the other
Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, all the other things that take up our news.
Doesn't generate advertising.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't create the cash. Now the I understand that tactical nuclear weapons have a number of fail-safe switches, just to prevent, I don't know, any kind of accidental detonation. Would these suitcase nukes have something similar? I mean, just to prevent.
You got to realize what these what these weapons were developed for.
Well, I'm saying so they wouldn't blow up in their hands before they were ready to set them off.
You see, these were not developed for detonation by experts. Originally they were developed for the KGB, and therefore there were some expertise, Spetsnaz officials to detonate them. But they have been streamlined to such an extent that they can be detonated by a single agent very easily with a cellular phone. These are not difficult to detonate.
Okay.
And once again, these have been boosted with beryllium, and so that they pack a bang that's similar to the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. Since you have a scary program, we should really talk for a bit. What's going to happen? What is going to happen?
Yeah.
This is according to Mueller and everything. What is not what could happen? What is going to happen when these detonates on American soil?
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, I mean, this is going to obviously not only the numbers of people that are killed immediately by the impacts, but also the radioactive fallout. And what's that going to do to you saw War of the Worlds, right?
Yeah.
All the people, Tom Cruise is running in his car. I know this is a movie, but mobs of people trying to get to the car to try to get out of the city.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what we're going to have happen. What's going to happen to the rest of our cities? Obviously, we're going to have to impose martial law. We're going to have soldiers on the streets. They're going to be armed.
Definitely destroy.
It's going to destroy all kinds of
infrastructure.
trade. It's going to destroy our economy.
Probably food production.
Yeah, food production is going to be a big issue.
Well, you guys are painting a very rosy picture of what will happen.
Oh, yeah.
What would happen?
I think we've got a caller. Who we got? We've got Chris from Atlanta,
Chris
Georgia.
Atlanta.
Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Chris.
Doing all right, guys. How you doing?
Pretty
Doing
good.
good.
Happy America Day.
Yes, Happy America Day. Flying out to the West Coast to celebrate our nation's birthday.
Awesome.
Right.
Where are you going?
Los Angeles.
Hey, that's one of the cities on the nuke list.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know. Well, hey, I'm already living in a city on the nuke list, so.
Or if you're not, you should be. Anyway, no. I'm sorry.
What's your question, Chris?
Okay, my biggest question for the guest is, given that Osama bin Laden and all of the terrorists and all the bad guys, I'll just label them as bad guys, that makes it easier for me. All the bad guys have all this horrible technology, the equipment to be able to build dirty nukes, the equipment to be able to build, you called a nuclear implosion device, all these weapons of mass destruction. Why is it takes them 6 years after their first strike to grow the cojones to use them?
Well, it took 8 years. It took 8 years. 1993 was the first attack on the World Trade Center, and then the second one.
Yeah, the guys who rented the
2001.
truck that they used to go down there and try and set off the explosion. Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Well, you got to realize that first of all, the 1993 attack on the World Trade Center occurred when these terror organizations were very young, and it occurred before the fatwas were issued. The second attack was, according to bin Laden, ingenious. He said that he managed to do this to almost destroy, the economy of a city for less than $350,000. But he has always, from the beginning, even going back to his interview with John Miller of ABC in 1998, he announced his intent to nuke the United States. He's made no bones about that, and before he could do that, there's several things you have to do according to Islamic law. One, you have to get permission. He got that permission in 2004. He didn't have that before. Secondly, what he's talking about is an incredibly complicated attack. He doesn't want to just launch one attack. He wants to launch at least 7. Really, what I'm hearing right now, 10 simultaneously. This is probably this is an enormous effort that requires a great deal of synchronization and a great deal of planning. But since our borders are so wide open, and since you can really FedEx a tactical nuclear weapon, from one location to another, everything is in place right now. Now, what he's waiting for, I believe, and this is what Hamid Mir believes, and this is what Robert Mueller believes, he's waiting for a galvanizing moment, something that would unite the Muslim world in the jihad against the United States. That could be an attack on Iran. Once we take out their facilities, that could immediately launch the American Hiroshima. I don't know. But Bill Keller, the editor of the New York Times, when he looked into this, he wrote a piece called Nuclear Nightmares, and he concluded that, yeah, they have the technology, and yeah, the technology is in place. And then he asked your question, Chris. He said, well, if they have this technology, how come they haven't used it? And Keller's answer was this: the best reason for thinking they aren't going to use it is that they haven't used it yet, and that's terrible logic.
I would have to agree with that logic, yes, stating that, if they haven't used it yet, if they have it and they haven't used it yet, then they probably won't. I'd have to agree that's a horrible way of thinking, but when you consider that as far as their so-called jihad on America, yes, 9/11 was a tragedy. We lost thousands of lives. Our entire transportation infrastructure was basically shut down for, a week, 2 weeks? But the thing is that they never had any follow-up. They never had, once again, they never had the cojones to even go out and try and build an Oklahoma City van bomb to start hitting different cities. If they had half a clue, they would have followed up. But instead, they came out, guns a-blazing, fired off their one round that they had loaded, and then that was it.
What about the anthrax mill?
Oh, yeah, that really terrified a lot of people. We're talking about...
So wait a second. This is another thing that the American people aren't aware of, and they should be aware of this. There have been other attacks on the American soil. Let me give you one. I could give you numerous, but I'm just going to give you one tonight.
Okay.
Let's look at the Beltway sniper. John Allen Mohammed, a member of Jamaat al-Fuqra, engaged in a jihad, being sheltered in al-Fuqra compound in Red House, Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Do you realize the damage?
Just talking about Red House, actually, on the break.
Do you realize the damage that one guy, these two guys, Malvo and Mohammed, perpetuated on American soil? We're talking about the loss of billions and billions of dollars in revenue. Granted, they mowed down 10 people, but the reign of terror was incredible.
Yeah.
And that's just one. But we turned a blind eye to the actions of they call them Islamofascists on American soil, but they have attacked us on our soil since 9/11.
Okay, all right, I'll give you that. I guess I'm just going for, you're talking about the nuclear holocaust, the United States Hiroshima.
Right.
And while I'm not saying it won't happen and that we shouldn't guard ourselves against that, but these guys have had this stuff for so long,
Patience.
I really don't think that they'd wind up using it.
It's about patience, Chris. It's about patience. They're patiently waiting for the right moment.
You got to realize, once again, patience plays very important in this. Importantly, in this scenario, because there's a verse from the Quran. It's Bin Laden's favorite verse, and it goes like this: "I will be patient until I outpatience patience." And time is on their side. There's no hurry. These people have the technicians in place. They have the tactical nuclear devices in place, and time is playing on their side. I wish, Chris, that the American people would wake up.
But
I wish that we would.
Chess, if you're patient to launch your final attack and then realize you've only got a king and a pawn left, you've wasted your time.
There's only been since 9/11 one leader of Al Qaeda, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, taken into custody. The Shura is still in place.
Yeah, and that gets me on a whole nother spiel about GW and the wonderful job he's doing for a completely different radio show.
Yeah. Well, you'd be preaching to the choir.
We appreciate you calling in tonight, man. Thanks a lot, and good luck out west.
Not a problem.
We'll
Thanks.
talk
Have
to you
a good
soon.
one, guys.
Have a
too.
fun 4th, Chris.
All right.
Well.
That number again, 877-722-7382. That's 877-SCARE-U2. Call us out here in the South, where we're still red, white, and blue patriots. There's very few of us left. It's a sad and unfortunate thing that people are letting America go to hell in a handbasket.
Wow.
It's a sad and unfortunate thing that we're allowed. You know what we would have done, America, in the 1950s. You know what America would have done in the 1950s?
Shut the doors.
They would have shut the doors. They would have put all these
probably
people in
locked them away.
internment camps, or they would have shipped them out.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we can be safe here. And I don't even think that'll do it, because you've got so many of these freakish United States citizens. They should be strung up and shot by a firing squad. But you've got these people that are United States citizens that have converted to Islamofascism and that are born here, that are Americans that want to destroy themselves, basically. What is going on?
Like, what was that guy? I can't remember the dude's name, but he was the one. The one that they captured in Afghanistan. That was an American from.
There's another one that's still over there. That's
Oh yeah. I don't remember the names.
But I mean, clearly, I mean, they're not even.
I'm glad we don't
Arabic
remember
descent.
those names, because I don't want to give them any kind of kudos at all.
Yeah, that's
true. These guys are traitors. And they're dealing in. It bothers me. We have a listener. What's his name? Suretse. That's it. He's in New York, and he lives with 3 Muslim roommates. And I remember he calls in frequently from time to time, depending on the guest. And he called us one time. He said, "Oh, I have 3 Muslim roommates, and they're all." Really nice guys, and they don't believe in any of this. And I said, "You better lock your doors, brother." That's the first thing I told him. Anyway, we're up on a break.
Yeah, might as well take this break.
We're going to take our last break for the night. Call in and speak with Paul L. Williams tonight, 877-SCARE-U2. That's 877-722-7382. Toll free in the United States and Canada, or 336-996-1596. You're listening to World of the Unexplained. We'll be right back after this. And we're back, World of the Unexplained. We were talking over the break, and I just want to make this statement. Every American citizen should use that right to bear arms and arm yourselves to the teeth. And the reason I say this is if one of these things goes off, you're going to have to not only protect yourself, but you're going to protect your family. You're going to have to protect your wife, your kids, your property, your car. You're going to have to protect everything, your food. That's probably the most important thing you're going to have to protect if something like this happens. What do you think about that, Paul?
Well, I certainly think that when the director of the FBI is telling the people to prepare for a nuclear hit, you should take him at his word. I mean, because what he's doing is the old bureaucratic strategy of CYA, because he knows when something happens, he can say, at least, I did hold the press conference, I did warn the people. That's something that the American people should take to heart. So, but if one of these goes off, let's just contemplate what would happen for a second. If one went off at the site of 9/11, ground zero, and had a yield of 10 kiloton, and some of these small atomic nuclear devices they can carry around, they weigh 60 pounds, have an explosive yield in excess of 10 kiloton. If one went off, just a conventional explosion would take out, about 10 square city blocks. Following that would come a fireball that would expand to 750 feet in diameter, with a core that would reach a temperature of 10 million degrees Celsius. Now, this is what I'm saying. You're talking about War of the Worlds with people running. The people would disintegrate right before your eye. Like in the snap of a finger, they'd be gone. Buildings would be gone. Cars would be gone. Birds from the air would be gone. They'd be gone. Poof.
Well, how far out are we talking about the range on?
We're talking about something that would go from ground zero all the way down to the tip of Lower Manhattan, Battery Park, and all the way up to Central Park. Poof, gone. Now, after that would come a juggernaut blast with winds in excess of 640 miles an hour, ripping through the 5 boroughs of Manhattan and twisting the structures like pretzels, and of course blowing everything hither and there, so that there'd be very, very few structures left. Following that would come the mushroom-shaped cloud that would spew radioactive contaminants into into Connecticut, into New Jersey, and if the trade winds were right, into upper New York, with the end result that millions would be dead. Millions would be dead in any municipality, any major city.
So the safest place to be is probably out in Nevada or in the desert somewhere.
Or in the sticks somewhere. You know.
Well, except they're going to a site is Las Vegas.
Yeah, true. I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
Kansas is probably safe then. I don't know what are these 7 cities or these 10 cities? What do you think can you give us a list of those?
Well, generally found on College Sheikh Mohammed's computer. These cities were listed, but there are others that were listed as well. Boston, New York, Washington D.C., of course, Miami, Houston, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Chicago.
Wow.
Now there are others, that are mentioned in the chatter, and the other sites include even places like Valdez, Alaska, which you can understand because of the pipeline.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there are other sites, that they like, even like places like Denver that they talk about.
Anything in North Carolina, Paul? Like Charlotte.
North Carolina I think that's that's pretty safe.
All right. They're going to get Kernersville, though, because they just know I'm here. But, I mean, and then the question comes, after we know it's going to be terrible in the spots that do get this direct hit.
But just say the 7 cities get whacked.
Yeah.
What's your portfolio worth? I'll tell you.
Nothing. But what's going to happen to the people in the areas that don't get a lot of hit? That's where I think the survivors are going to come.
They're going to flood.
Yeah, they're going to flood these places, aren't they? I know I would.
People, when everything shuts down, everything would shut down. Communications, the transportation systems. How would you get food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, Paul Williams, have a backup plan? Do you have amount of stored water, stored food, a bunker? Do you have these things?
Well, yes, I live in the Pocono Mountains, so I'm in a safe area to start with. But I'm really not concerned at this point in my career with my own safety. This sounds like I'm courageous. I'm not. I just want to enter my father's house justified. And since I have to go one way or the other, look if I'm incinerated in a second, hey, that's not a bad way to go.
That's a quick way out.
It's much better than I'd rather go that way than to wait around for the radiological poisoning. I'd rather be exposed to a tactical nuke than a dirty nuke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Paul, on the things that have happened recently with the 2 car bombs discovered in London? Do you think that was Al Qaeda, or do you think that was
it's definitely Al Qaeda? But the point about the incidents in Great Britain is this: they're not at war with Great Britain. They don't want to obliterate Great Britain. They were at war with Spain. When they detonated Madrid. They're not at war with Japan. They're not at war with Bali, where they launched an attack. But they are at war with us.
All right, guys. Last chance to call and talk with Paul. 877-SCARE-U2. That's 877-722-7382. Or locally 336-996-1596. Paul, let's talk more about what's going to happen in the areas that these things explode.
Well, it's night-night. What they want to do, and they have intended to do this from the 7th century, and they believe that a day is coming that will be called the Day of Islam, a day when all of creation submits before the throne of Allah. And they believe that we have to be forced into submission. Now, during World War II, we were faced with a threat from Germany and from Italy and from Japan, and they had this evil axis of, and to some extent from the Middle East, from their allies in the Middle East. Most of these, which was interesting, most Muslims by nature are fascist. But right now, we are at war with hundreds of millions of people. That's a scary thing.
I agree. And these people,
these people are jihad is the 6th pillar of Islam. And the vast majority of people in Islamic countries, including places like Suriname in South America, which is now predominantly Islamic, are very much in support of jihad and very much would like to chop your head off.
Oh, yeah.
And very much would love to see the destruction of the United States. And to make things even scarier, you have maniacs now like Chavez and Lula and Castro working in tandem and traveling throughout the Middle East to cheering audiences yelling death to the United States. So our old enemies, including Russia right now, who is, of course, backing Iran, we're living in very precarious times. But the number one threat to us is coming from Islam, and that will be our demise.
Wow. So, just because we haven't mentioned it at all, I mean, it's been such a heavy topic, but where can they find your book, Paul? And
do you have a website?
Yeah, do you have a website or to find out
I don't have a website because all the nuts come after me.
Oh.
And I don't really, I mean, I get like I just don't have one.
You should see the mail we get.
Yeah.
And besides, I mean, like I said, I'm under enough. I'm under the fatwas and under the lawsuits, and so no, I don't need anybody else really bothering me. But my book is available everywhere. But I prefer if I really don't. I'm not on a program like this to peddle a book. I think you guys know that.
Yeah.
Most of our
but I mean, I'm sure
because
people will be very interested in reading it.
Yeah, and you can get that Amazon.com stocks.
They should read it for not certainly because it will bring any enrichment to me, but they should read it just to be aware, because I never write a sentence without a footnote.
Yeah, I noticed.
They should go back to my sources, and they should discover that I'm only a reporter, an old reporter who prides myself on my accuracy. I've won many journalistic awards. I haven't been wrong in my reporting. Of all the things that I reported during my career, I've never encountered a story like this, a story of such importance. And if the people become aware of the threat, they can do something about it. But if they remain in the same state they are right now, then there's no hope.
And for those of you that don't like journalistic writing, I'll tell you it's not written inverted pyramid style. It's actually good stuff. It's written out like a book. He's got it very organized.
It's got a good flow to it.
Yeah, the chapters are very short, but they get you in, they get you out, they explain everything to you. It's really good stuff. I think he's a wonderful writer. I don't say that about many of the guests because me being a former English major and editor of a college paper myself, I know I know the importance of how to place a good semicolon, and it really bothers me when someone can't use one or an apostrophe.
I was an English teacher too. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I taught criminal law at a university around here, and it just shocked and surprised me that the kids are juniors and seniors, and they couldn't write a paragraph worth anything. It tells you where the country's going. Get off the iPods, kids.
Yeah,
read a book. But we appreciate you coming on the show so much, Paul.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say? A final word, for example?
Well, yeah. What else do you want me to tell you? Do you want me to tell you where Bin Laden is?
Yeah, we'd love to hear that.
How would that be fair? We have to clue this with. Well, if you want to find out where Osama bin Laden is, you don't go to people like me, and you don't go to the internet, and you don't even go to a library. And you don't watch TV. I'll tell you where you go. You go to the Soldier of Fortune convention in Las Vegas. There you will find out where he is, because at this convention, they lure every mercenary from throughout the world, and they come to this convention to do business, to get contracts, to promote their wares. You're dealing with, once again, mercenaries, soldiers for hire from throughout the world. At this convention, you'll meet mercenaries from Great Britain. You'll meet many from South Africa, where most of the companies are. You meet many from Asia. You meet Israeli mercenaries. You'll even meet Arab mercenaries. But they all, when you meet with them and you talk to them and you ask them, where's Osama bin Laden? They all know. Because Osama bin Laden has a $25 million bounty on his head, the highest bounty of anyone in the world. They all know where he is, and they'll tell you, in a second. He's in a place called Dir, D-I-R, in the northwest frontier province of Pakistan. He has been there since Tora Bora. They showed me, the mercenaries, these night letters that are circulated, and they all said the same thing, that he's there, but we can't go in and get him. That's the funny part.
Why is that?
Listen, a Girl Scout troop could wander there and find him very easily. I'll tell you why. Because that area of Pakistan is tribal. It's not part of the Pakistani government. It's autonomous. It's governed by Pashtun and Pashtu tribes, and these people are protecting him. They live by this Islamic code of hospitality, where they would guard him with their lives and will guard him with their lives. We can't go in there because if any of our troops set foot in the northwest frontier province of Pakistan, it would create an outrage throughout Pakistan that would result in the toppling of the Musharraf government. And if that occurred, the mullahs would then be in control of Pakistan, the radical mullahs who hate us. And let's not forget the fact that Pakistan is a member of the nuclear club. They have 68 strategic nuclear weapons capable of destroying all of the world. So we cannot step foot in there. And the mercenaries who tried, according to the people that I talked to, the way to Dir, the valley of Dir, back and forth, you will find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of corpses, all of mercenaries who are set out to find Osama bin Laden.
Wow.
But that's where he is.
That's probably where a lot of the neo-Taliban probably hide out too.
Well, there's another thing I can tell you in closing. In Pakistan right now, and you won't read this, at least 4 provinces are under control of the Taliban, and the Taliban also has managed to conquer most of southern Afghanistan. That brings us to another thing that we can talk about. How do these guys, the Taliban and bin Laden, have so much money that they can buy these nuclear weapons? Well, it's not because of their families, and it's not because of the oil.
Drugs.
And exactly. It comes from the heroin fields, the poppy fields, that right now, as we're speaking, are red with poppies. And we're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars every year, and all the funds flow into the coffers of the Taliban and Al Qaeda. And every time somebody in a college campus or a shopping mall or a public park takes a hit of heroin, they're funding the jihad.
Wow, unbelievable.
Paul, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. We appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Paul.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Wow.
Paul Williams.
I told you that'd be a good show.
Absolutely. There was a number. I forgot to mention it when we were talking about Chechnya, but I don't know if it's true now, but at the time, and one of the reasons why the Russians invaded, partly because Chechnya wanted to secede and they wanted to try to preserve their political integrity with all these other different ethnicities wanting to break away after the collapse. But the Chechens are really, really deep into criminal networks throughout Russia. And they were like a clearinghouse for all these drugs into Europe and America for a long time. Now, I don't know if that's the case now, but there's a map of Afghanistan right there.
I was wondering if Chuck was finding deer.
It would have been. It's in Pakistan.
It's somewhere.
Yeah, probably up in that northwest province, the tribal areas. That's the same place, actually. I remember a news story where a woman was gang raped because she had committed some kind of thing that was blasphemous to the the religious leaders in that area. It just seems like a really, I don't know. Scott?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, okay. I know you are sometimes.
I'm watching Chuck.
But I mean, it's just a really awful place, and no one controls it. And honestly, it was a little bit like Afghanistan, where Bin Laden had his strongholds for so many years. I don't know what to say. I mean,
oh, Chuck can't spell.
I think our military policies are probably flawed. Needless to say, I mean, you can't fight terrorists with a conventional army. You know what I'm saying, Scott?
Well, yeah, you can. You just nuke everyone.
Well, I mean, okay, you could do that, but
get a parking lot and build a Walmart.
No, that's still not. I don't think that's still going to work. Yeah,
it takes a little more finessing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a snake to kill a snake. You know what I'm saying? And these Muslim terrorists are, they're sneaky and they're smart, and we need people who are sneaky and smart and just as ruthless as they are. And the thing is, here's the thing. I think the media and the American populace, we want to see vengeance and we want to see blood and we want to see heads on pikes. And if these guys were able to do their jobs, you wouldn't, it'd be like 10 or 15 years down the line. Oh yeah, Bin Laden, we killed him like ages ago. You know what I'm saying? But they couldn't release it because it would jeopardize their other operations. I think intelligence is the key to defeating terrorism, not military, not any military anywhere at any time. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I have the solution. I'm not going to say it, but.
You're gonna bomb everything.
That's part of it, but yeah.
No, go ahead.
We just need a new crusade, man.
A new crusade.
Yeah, a new crusade.
The crusades didn't really work the first time.
George Bush
though.
already tried it.
Yeah, I know, but Bush is an idiot.
I mean,
we need a smart guy to back
yeah,
a
but
new
you
crusade.
do realize that the crusades failed. Every single one, even any territory that they got, because they got the wrong kind of guys in there. They got the people that won the fast buck, and they won the people who won the cash, and they even attacked Constantinople. That was a Christian community. But they're Christians, but they're going to attack their own. Okay, it was Eastern Orthodox, but still, they weren't Muslim. You know what I'm saying? And they took over the city.
If Richard the Lionheart couldn't do it, man.
Yeah, that guy was pretty tough,
Yeah.
I don't know about that crusade thing, unless we start finding some
like I said,
paladins out there.
My whole thing is buy the guns while you still can, buy them, load them, practice with them.
Start learning how to plant crops.
Stock up on ammo. Learn how to plant crops. Exactly.
It's beginning to sound more and more like those radical Mormons, man.
Those radical Mormons, yeah.
Radical
I've
Mormons.
got the special underwear too, the magic underwear.
We'll make some spirit babies.
Take 7 wives.
That's right, 7 wives, and 20 kids.
Man. But it's very fascinating and kind of disturbing.
It's very disturbing.
But I think that well, I mean, yes. I guess kind of is.
It's kind of disturbing only because he doesn't live in Boston, New York, any of the major cities that are going to get.
But I think
otherwise it'd be very disturbing.
Honestly, Scott, if this thing actually went off and these things work, do you realize the backlash that would happen against Muslims everywhere in the United States?
I don't think so. I think the liberals are too blinded.
No, because the liberals would totally have been unjustified. If nuclear weapons were detonated in the United States, I think liberals wouldn't have a political leg to stand on. I mean, there would be too much anger and too much outrage after we start rebuilding our society.
Here's what I don't understand.
I think it would be very, very bad for certain ethnic groups in this country.
Here's what I don't understand. Why aren't the feminists and the gays? Why aren't they behind the conservatives in an effort to put a stop to the terrorists? Because if you think about it, and you know what Islam is.
The most woman-hating
and gay-hating.
I wouldn't say woman-hating, but I mean they totally restrict women from doing anything, and any feminist would.
And you think if you're homosexual, they're not going to kill you? That's a big sin.
Yeah, but there's a lot of homo networks in Turkey. Like for example, there's a huge a huge network in the Balkans where basically rich Turkish and Saudi businessmen will go and purchase young Balkan boys.
So Chuck's saying the Arabs are gay just on the down low.
It was rumored that Arafat died of AIDS because he had homosexual relations.
Wow.
He died of a mysterious blood disorder.
That's why they call him Easy Arafat. That's what Yasser meant. Easy Arafat. That's what it meant. Yep. Old Easy Arafat, boy.
But anyway, they got gay people in Islam. I guess they're just on the DL.
They're on the down low. But what I'm saying is, if this is one of the things that they push for so hard about, anti-homosexual, anti-woman to a certain degree. Yeah. I mean, why aren't these traditional liberal groups fighting for for America here?
It would seem to make sense. I mean, it doesn't seem like a world ruled by Islam would be.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think they're doing it to spite George Bush.
Yeah.
And George,
Stupid.
don't get me wrong, George Bush is not the greatest president. He's probably the worst president.
Well, Warren G. Harding.
Or yeah, he's up there. Yeah,
It's pretty.
But
yeah, he might have taken first. Warren G. was the first place for a long time, but I think
he admitted he was no good at it.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Warren,
but,
Warren G. knew that he was an idiot.
What I'm saying is, I mean, we've got to, this is our country. And, I mean, think about this on the 4th of July when you're sitting around with your buddies, cooking out, having a beer. Think about what we're talking about here. This is something that could catastrophically change the history of this nation. It could basically bring down this country at its knees.
Yeah.
And there'd be no more United States of America. Rome will one day burn, my friends.
Extremism is a bad thing, no matter where it comes from. That's my
right.
opinion.
I agree.
know.
Well, we're coming to that moment, this magic moment. Next week, Ethan Dettenmeyer, St. John Smith. This is J.Scott, your only JD DJ on the Omnisound Radio 1 network.
Dude, we got like 40 seconds, you know that?
Okay, well, I just want to get that out.
Okay, well, this is Trent Lackey. We're in Kernersville, North Carolina, a small town where we talk about big things.
All right, now we got 30 seconds.
Just going to waste.
We'll let Chuck get a tagline out tonight.
Actually, remember you guys to pick up some potassium iodine. It'll protect your thyroid when those dirty bombs go off.
Oh, okay. PSA from Chuck.
That's it.
PSA
from Chuck. All right, and as always, ladies and gentlemen, we know the one man that always gets the final word on world.